All right, today's topic is going to be on literal equations. Now, literal equations are going to look different than what we've been doing so far, in the sense that there's going to be more letters than numbers involved in this. And I know how much you all love having to work with letters in math, but here we are. So, literal equations is going to look hard. You're going to think it's crazy, but it's not. It's probably easier than the stuff we've been doing if you just follow the rules of the two-step equations, okay, and the multi-step equations. If you follow the same rules, then you'll be okay, okay? So let's start with our first example. Let's start simple. Remember, you're not going to see a lot of numbers here. G equals C plus X, and we're going to solve for X, okay? So, in this case, there are no numbers involved, okay, but our equation asks us to solve for X. So X is what we're going to be by itself. We're going to isolate the variable. Okay, we're going to get X by itself. So we look at our problem here. G equals C plus X. So our X is here. That's what we're trying to solve. That's what we're trying to get by itself. Okay. Now, if we were to do this real quick with numbers, okay, let's just put that away for a sec. And I were to give you 10 equals 5 plus X. If I were to give you that equation, okay, you would know easily what to do, right? You would just take your 5 and you would subtract 5 from both sides, and your answer would be 5 equals X, right? X is by itself, okay? And that's a simple, very simple equation, right? Well, that's exactly what we're doing before, okay? That's exactly what we're doing in this one, okay? Trying to get X by itself, so we have to move what's not attached to our X, which is C in this case. So we have to move our C. Well, if C is positive, we have to do the opposite and subtract it. We do minus C and minus C to that side, okay? So when we do this, our C's here cancel out. Bring down our X. Now, when you look in here, G minus C. Now, obviously, you can't do G minus C, considering that we don't know what those numbers are, okay? They're just letters right now. So if we can't do anything with it, then you don't. You just bring it down exactly the way it is, G minus C. So we just rewrite G minus C equals X. And that's our final answer. That's it. That's all you gotta do. Okay, there's no math involved really. We're literally, as you all love to say, we literally just moving the letter to this side of the equal sign. Okay, there's no calculations. Okay, we're just taking this, moving it to that side. Okay, once again, if I were to show you our previous problem, if we were to substitute numbers, okay, 5 plus x equals 10. If I were to substitute that, okay, you would do the same thing. We did minus C. You would do minus 5, okay? Cancel that, bring down our X. Now, if we were to do it the same way here, we would just leave it as 10 minus 5, right? Like, we would just leave it at that, right? And that's kind of what we're doing here. It's the same concept, okay? So just follow the same rules as you would with one-step, two-step equations. Follow the same rules. You're just not calculating or doing any, quote, math, okay? We're just moving things, okay? So that was a simple one. Okay, let's keep it simple. Okay, you'll get the hang of it, don't worry. G equals 6x for x, okay? So once again, we're solving for x, okay? Now this time we do have a number here, it's 6, but our other side of the equal sign has a G, okay? There's no number involved. Okay, so once again, we just follow our rules. We know for one-step equations, we know that if it's a number is attached to a letter as such, it wants us to multiply it, 6 times x. Well, to get rid of that, remember we have to divide. Do the opposite and divide. So we're dividing by our number. Remember, x is what we're trying to solve for, right? Divide by our number. Divide by 6 here. Divide by 6 on this side. Okay, we're just following the rules. You divide on both sides. So when we do that, our 6's get canceled out on this side. Our x gets brought down, and with G divided by 6. Now, once again, we can't do G divided by 6, so we just have to leave it the way it is, as G over 6. Okay, and that's just our final answer. There's nothing else involved to it. There's no math, there's no nothing. We just moved our 6 to this side. But we have to follow the rules. Remember, there's the rules of doing the opposite of what's being told here. It's 6 times x, we divide by 6, and bring it down. That's all there is to it. Okay, so there's nothing complicated about this. We're literally just moving things to this side. Okay, just try to isolate the one variable it wants us to find. Let's try a different one. U equals k over a, and we're solving for a. Okay, now this one is a little tricky. Okay, but watch and learn. Okay, it's not that difficult. If we know what we're doing, following the rules, remember. So we're solving for a. Here is our a here. Okay, that's the letter we're trying to get by itself. Okay, now if we look, our a is on the bottom of this division bar, right? It's k divided by a. Okay, so to get by itself, we have to do the opposite of division, which is to multiply. Now, follow along with me here. If we multiply, we have to multiply what's on the, remember, when we multiply these things, we multiply what's on the bottom of the fraction bar, what's on the bottom of the division bar, okay? On the bottom is a. So in this type of equation, we're going to multiply by the bottom, which is a, on both sides. Okay? So we're taking our a and we're moving it to this side. Okay, this cancels out here, and we're just taking our a and moving it to this side. Now, when we do this, we have a times u. Now remember, we can't do a times u, so we just leave it as a u. Okay, that means the same thing. A is next to the u. They're next to each other, which means you want them to multiply. So a times u. What's left on this side? Our k. So we bring down our k. Now we have AU equals K. Now, our A is still what we're trying to find. We're still trying to isolate that, right? So what's attached to our A? Well, now we have a U attached to it. Before we had the K that was being divided, so we have to multiply by A to move it to this side. Now, A is by itself here, attached to the U. Well, how do we get rid of this U? Well, remember, if it's attached together, they want them to multiply. So we must do the opposite of multiply, and that is to divide. So we must divide by u, okay, and move it. So we take our u and divide it on both sides by that same letter, okay? When we do that, our a is going to be by itself because our u's on this side get canceled out. When our u's get canceled out, our a gets brought down, and because it's k divided by u, remember there's no numbers, we can't do anything with that, so it stays as k divided by u. And that's going to be our final answer. So pause here, look at this, write this down if you have to, okay? It looks complicated, it's not, okay, it's just a different way of doing things. Let's try a different one. P equals 2w plus 2l, and we're going to solve for w, okay? Now, for those of you who are keen to this, we know that this actually is a formula. It's the equation for perimeter. Okay, but we'll get to that later. Solving for w. That's what we're trying to solve for. Here's our w right here. Okay. So, what do we do first? Well, remember, the rules say we can't move our number attached to the letter before we move everything else away from it. We have our 2l here. Now, what we can do here, it's plus 2l. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this whole 2l, okay? We're going to take the whole thing and subtract it from itself, the whole thing, the 2 and the L, and we're going to subtract it over to this side. Moving the whole thing. We're literally moving the whole thing to this side. That gets canceled out, okay? We bring down our 2w, okay? Remember, that's what we're trying to find still. P minus 2L. Now, once again, we can't do P minus 2L, so we just leave it as P minus 2L. We just leave it the way it is. There's nothing to do with it. Now our last step is to get the w by itself, to get rid of this 2 attached to it. Now remember, how do we get rid of that 2? Well, we have to divide by our number, by 2. And we do that for the whole thing. Now look, I'm dividing the whole thing, this whole term, p minus 2l, we're dividing the whole thing by 2. Okay, not just one side, not just the other side, the whole thing gets divided by 2. Our 2's here cancel. We're left with w by itself, and once again, we can't do anything here So the whole thing is our answer. There's nothing we can do here. Don't try to reduce these 2's. You can't, because there's a p minus in front of it. So you can't reduce the 2's there. It just stays the way it is. Okay, so once again, we're just following the rules. We're literally just moving this to this side, and then the 2 to this side. We're just taking everything and moving it from one side to the other. There's just not going to be any, quote, calculations involved. We're just literally moving it to the other side. Okay, follow the rules. Remember, it's the same rules as with 1-step and 2-step equations. The same rules. We're just not really using, a lot of numbers. We're not doing a lot of math. We're just kind of moving things to that side.